is the FCO course, June 2015, Part 10, Roles and Responsibilities of Key Resource Officials. As we have talked about, FCOs y'all wear many different hats and have numerous roles and responsibilities. No napping this hour. This is the one key session. You can nap the rest if you like. The one key session where we talk about your roles, what we expect from you, what makes an FCO that goes the extra mile, so we really want to pay attention. Okay, so who are some key people? Senior resource officials, SBOs, allowance holders, what do they all do, what kind of stuff? Just kind of a little bit of a chart. You got the AAs and the deputy AAs are going to be your senior resource officials. They're kind of responsible for everything that goes on related to money and everything like that. That would be for the regions, it would be the deputy, not the ARA, and the headquarters, it would be the deputy administrators. So one of the things we talked about, Joe early talked about FCOs must constantly communicate with everybody. Your FCO, your grants folks, your contracts folks. If not that, maybe your SCORE, whoever's doing the work for you, you've got to keep in touch. Are things committed? Are they obligated? What's the status? You're running reports, but you've got to be talking to your people all the time. Working capital fund service providers. Barb will talk about that a little bit tomorrow. Maybe the payment officers. Everyone's kind of got to work together. Communication is the key. If you're doing a good job, you've got to be talking to everybody. So how many of you talk once or twice a week with your project officers, your cores, or someone from the agency's finance centers? Okay. Extra points for those guys. You should be talking to these people. You want to know what's going on. One of the things we'll say when we talk about your roles and responsibilities, especially at year end, if I'm an FCO, if I was an FCO, we'll say that, I would want to know the status of every single funding option every single day. Sounds like Maureen is doing that. Some of the others may. That's what I would want to be doing as an FCO. I want to know the status of everything all the time. Okay, SRO, Deputy Assistant Administrators, or ARAs, we talked about that. They're accountable for effective resource management throughout the agency. You guys are really doing the kind of the bottom work, and they're kind of overseeing everything, and they're counting on you to do your job right, to help them out. So it looks like for SRO, concurrence is required for agreements for is Ralph here? We'll talk about it later. Assistance agreements or grants over $5 million. And for continuing program grants. So anything over $5 million or $1 million for project grants. Office of Budget, what do? We give you information, hopefully. Hopefully we do it well. Email list, we have a actually the best way we communicate is Joe's FCO guide, but we do Budget X updates. Should go to all the SBOs, the budget staff, and if you're not getting information, I would complain maybe to your senior budget folks. Hey, I wouldn't complain, I would suggest to your senior budget folks, maybe you need some more information that we send out. Okay, we have 4 finance centers, Research Triangle Park. They do contracts, working capital fund service agreements, small purchases. We count on them a lot at headquarters. Las Vegas does grants. They pay out grants. Cincinnati, we deal with them on interagency agreements, travel authorizations, and that's Jason. PCS moves, purchase cards. We kind of have that in the course sometimes. I don't think we're going to cover that in the course this week. In DC, they deal with the payroll. We showed you this. This is Joe's FCO guide. Everything you want to know about FCOs, this is a good place to look. This is the FCO course, June 2015, Part 10 continued. We just ask all the groups to get together and put together a list of the best practices for an FCO. So let's hear the report on what you all found or what you decided. How about group number 1? What do we have here? Okay, can you stand up and talk some of your best practices?
Group 1's FCO best practices are to have good customer service, run frequent URL/open commitments. Ongoing communications is critical. Continuous training. Know how to find information, resources. Know who your point of contacts are. Knowledge is power. Understand policy. Know your agency goals and appropriations. Be efficient, timely. Keep management abreast of all budget actions/inquiries. Stay in contact with deadlines, closeout schedules, and accuracy.
Thank you. I think we would agree with all of those, and we're going to touch on some more specific things. Thank you very much for participating. Here's your treat for the day. Okay, group number 2, and if you stand up, you can announce your name also again.
Okay. I'm Scott Maid. Group number 2's best practices for FCOs. Number 1 was consistency, especially with our documentation, so that the figures match. Communication about being proactive with your programs. 3, keeping good records. That's really important. Number 4, don't leave people hanging. Follow up and follow through.
Oh, let me stop you right there. Don't you hate it when you email someone and you don't hear back? Or you know, worst comes where you apply for a job and you never hear whether or not they accept. But yeah, that is, people are waiting. Okay.
Number 5, keep your managers out of trouble. And nobody wants to be in the front of a Senate subcommittee hearing, so do things the right way. Keep up on the status of the commitments that are being made, financial commitments. Be willing to be the bad guy to keep your spending moving properly in the office. Ask the hard questions.
And let me say that I will go beyond be willing. I'd say you should be doing that. You shouldn't be willing. That's part of your job. If not the bad guy, the information person.
Mm-hmm. Good customer service, especially on the voicemails. Keep up.
Can you talk about what that means, the good customer service on the voicemail?
Oh, that means we'll be regularly updating your voicemail to let people know where you are and where you'll be. So
people know if you're available. Okay, thank you.
Keeping up with all the policies, the procedures, the deadlines, the systems. There's continuous changes going on. You need to be familiar with all of them. And know what your status of funds is. And if anybody asks you, you need to know what you've got to work with.
Thank you, Scott. Group number 3.
Maureen Burke, Group 3, our best practices. Update phone and email message daily. Let people know where they are. Communicate with your office. Make sure they're aware of deadlines, schedules, information from OCFO and Office of Budget. Review your status of funds daily. Know where your funds are, whether you have old funds that need to get out or whether you've used them all up, whether you have de factos that you need to cover. Review your ULOs monthly and send them out to your managers so that they can get on their WAMs and their cores to make sure they're spending their money. You don't want money sitting in a contract with no invoices coming in. Watch your burn rates. Check your inbox on all your systems, at least daily, if not more, to make sure you don't have any documents sitting in a queue waiting for processing. Work with your formulation team. You want to make sure your money is in the correct BOCs where you need it so you're not constantly reprogramming. Communication, that's your key. You have to talk to everybody in your office, make sure everybody knows what's going on, when your deadlines, when they have to have their money out. You don't want to lapse funds.
Thank you, Maureen. And I want to add a couple things. We talked about the fish philosophy, and I kind of want to add that in the class, some of the things, how important that would be, and some of the things that are pretty critical. Choose your attitude when you're dealing with all the people you're communicating with, how important, what a difference it makes if you're talking to someone who's got a positive attitude, enthusiastic, and when they hear you say that, it makes their job and your job so much better. And the other one, be there when you're talking to somebody, be focused on them, who you're talking to, and responding to whatever their issues are. Group number 4. Thank you, Marco.
Melinda Deloach, group number 4. A lot of these are repetitive, but we're going to go down the list. Again, one of the main ones is to make sure people know where you are and that you'll be available when your availability is by updating your voicemail with you. Certify your availability of funds. Make sure that people submit, there's policy in your office to submit your travel at least 2 weeks in advance for funding. Constantly review your ULOs. Contact your project officers weekly. Constant review of discrepancy reports. Make sure you have wonderful, good customer service. Know your policies. Standard operating procedures also within your office. Constant training. Always follow up with your customers. Know the closeout schedule and share that with your office. And never allow your PRCs to go into the negative. The balance is to be a negative.
Okay, keep your balances positive. Okay, thank you very much. And group number 5.
Thank you. Our list were...
And your name?
I'm
start with
sorry,
your
my name is Juanita Gilchrist, and group number 5. Our lists were communicate with relevant parties weekly, if not daily. CORs, all the persons that need to have current information, make sure we communicate with them. Customer service, update the voicemail with the daily status of where we are, today's date, if we're out, we're in training, or whom they can contact in our absence. Keep good records. Stay current with your training. Know the status. Run your reports daily. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If there's an issue with airfare or Kleenex, ask questions on the purchases. Have relevant contacts. OGC. If you don't know the answer, know where to find the answer. And document. Even if, generate your own SOPs.
Thank you, Juanita. And we're going to let Andrew go through his list and our list and what we think of some of the things we got. I think you got a lot of big ones. Very pleased. It makes me excited that all of you mentioned customer service. And now I'm going to look forward to talking to y'all because y'all are going to have a great attitude and you're all going to be great. So we'll let Andrew start going over some of our list.
You guys did a pretty good job, mentioned most of the stuff I'm going to highlight. But, you guys are FCOs. You guys control the money and FTEs. You should know everything that's happening in your office. Is that correct? Does everything go through you guys? They should, right? You should know everything. You guys have that power. You guys are the gatekeepers. You have the money, the money people. So you guys have to be experts in everything: payroll, travel, contracts, expenses, grants, all the fun stuff. And you have to be experts in the systems. So, for example, I'm going to ask a question. After you fund a contract, it's in the EAS, it goes into Compass, pops out in CDW. What do you do next?
Watch to make sure it gets obligated. And then it's not taking too long to get obligated. If it's sitting out there unobligated, you got a problem.
And how do you get that done?
Obligated, you work with your contracting officer.
Exactly. So everyone here, after you fund a contract, you should send that PR to the core and to the CO. I see, to push it forward. That's a good practice. And it's just not for contracts, it's for anything else. If you fund supplies, if you fund, well, working capital fund, it's automated. But if you fund anything, you want to make sure you want to give it to the next person, so the obligation official. You know, you're giving them the ball to run with it. You don't just commit and just forget about it. You don't let it sit there, especially with expiring funds and during this time of the year. You want to make sure you get things obligated before the end of the year because you don't want those big balances. It looks bad in your office, looks bad on you, and next year when they apply cuts, they apply it based on your balances that you have left over. So you have a big balance, you get a big cut. If you don't want a big cut, reduce that balance. They'll apply that cut to another office. So here are a couple of basic things most of you guys talked about. You know, certify the funds, make sure you have enough money in your status of funds, make sure you're not going over your ceilings like program projects or allowance holder or BOC. And, you know, make sure the accounting's correct. IT codes, there's a lot of IT codes. We all know there's a lot of conference codes out there that can get confusing. But, you know, you want to try the best you can to make sure all those codes are correctly because pretty much use them, you know, for reporting at the end of the year. You know, if you want to reconcile and see what you actually spend for a project or for a conference or in an office, you know, you want to make sure that accounting's correct so those reports make sense. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of times you look at it and you have no idea what's happening. You know, it could be that people are using different codes, different, you know, methodologies. So you want to be consistent. So again, pretty much covers some of this. You know, you record financial transactions in Compass, EAS, Concur. You know, you want to take that transaction to the next step, especially for the big ticket items like contracts. Working capital fund, it's automated through web forms, so you know, that's not a big issue. But sometimes some people fund something working capital funding correctly, and I don't know if you guys had that experience, they won't approve it and it'll just sit there for a while. So, you know, you want to make sure that it goes to the next step. You know, make sure, go to CDW after you fund something, make sure you funded it correctly. You know, you have the ability to make any corrections to the commitment before it gets obligated. Once it gets obligated, it becomes a little bit messier. It will have to be de-obligated or, you know, you're going to have to swap funding. So pretty much the time to make the correction is during the commitment phase, which you guys are all familiar with. You know, check decommitted and de-obligated funds, enter Encompass, you know, if you get money back. And I'll go into this more when I do my CDW reports. So as an FCO, you run your status of funds, hopefully. How many times should you run your status of funds? How many times do you guys actually do it? Daily? Is that true? Oh, you guys are pretty good. How about expiring funds? Daily? Especially now, right? All your expiring funds are done, right? Yeah? Sure? Some people ain't sure. So yeah, you know, you want to, you know, run your status of funds, you know, as an FCO almost every other day. During this time of the year, definitely your expiring funds you want to check daily, and your new money, you know, every other day. You know, you want to push that money out, make sure it gets obligated, make sure it gets invoiced. You also want to make sure you send good status of funds reports to your managers. So when you guys send a status of funds report to your upper management who are not budget people and don't know what 21 is, 37, 36, how many times do you guys send it to them? Monthly? Monthly report. Monthly? Okay. You know, I'll recommend bi-weekly. They don't want it bi-weekly? Bad managers. Bad. They don't care about money then. So. They rely on us to keep it. Okay, okay. Are you the SBO? I'm backup. Backup, okay. Okay, so at least the SBO is getting bi-weekly or probably. Well, our SBO Okay, daily. Okay, that's good. That's good.
We work together daily.
That's good. So also, when you're doing the status of funds report, and I'll cover this later, I have an acronym I like to use, which is, we also use it in appropriation law, is PAT. So every time I create a report, I keep 3 things in mind when I'm sending it out to someone that's not budget related. So I think about the purpose of the report, the audience, and the thesis. So if I want to make sure I get all my expiring funds out, the purpose of my report is just going to be expiring funds. And maybe it's going to go to, the cores and, other people that work on contracts. Then maybe the purpose of the report is just going to be, expiring funds, 37. My audience is just going to be the cores, and the thesis is going to be get rid of expiring funds. So I recommend every time you do a report, you're sending it out to someone else that's not budget related, just think of the acronym purpose, a PAT, purpose, audience, thesis. You want to keep in mind the audience and the purpose of that report, because a lot of times, I'm pretty sure you guys sent a status of funds to your managers, and you left 37, BOC 37 there, 36, 38, and they looked at you and asked you, what is that? Is that true? Come on.
We never send them the numbers. We
Exactly.
don't know what they are.
Oh, that's good. But I know some people do that. They send just the raw data to their managers, and your manager is going to have a blank face and not know what that means, or even PRCs.
You can mention a bunch of people in the audience are nodding. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
not a bunch of people in the audience are nodding. I know this happens,
Never send raw data out.
So every time you do this, just keep in mind the audience and the purpose of your status of funds. Each status of funds is going to be tailored uniquely depending on the purpose. So, that's just something to keep in mind.
Let me add something. Kind of in our office, one of the things I would want to do in every report I send anywhere, a title that makes sense, a date when it was run, who ran it, and where the data came from. That's something you want to be thinking about. Yeah, I'm sending this to my manager, that's what they want. But thinking about if you're not there or if someone else looks at it later, what information would they need to replicate the report, or how frequently was the report run, when was the last day. Think about that. Put some reference data on each report, and maybe if it's a spreadsheet, it could be a separate tab or something there. It's kind of a rule we have in budget. Anything we're sending, there's reference data so we understand everything we need to know about the data, where it came from.
And you guys are keeping a centralized document with all your funding? You guys know? Is there one document that you guys are keeping all your PRs that you funded this year in numerical order? Yes? No? Project? Okay. Whatever works in your office. It's not just one way, but you're keeping a centralized book with all the financial transactions, decommitments, adding more money, de-obligations. Yes? No? Yeah, say yes. You guys should. If you're not, you should be doing it. Keep one centralized book with everything in it. It could be by project, it could be by office. You could put it in sequential order. But you want to keep the documentation, the funding, the signatures, any other backup information, just in case you get audited. Could be a year from now, 2 years from now, they can ask you, hey, can you show me this paperwork for a plaque that you bought? They'll make sure the plaque is less than, there we go, $75. Just simple stuff like that. You can just show them the paperwork and, the issue is solved, but you don't want to be that person that doesn't have that. You don't want to be caught red-handed or the last person in line, Again, also, when you're running these reports, especially for travel, are you guys making sure they're getting vouchered out in 5 days? Yeah? It's not very convincing, yes. Yeah, there's a delay. Sometimes when people submit the voucher, there's definitely a delay, but you want to run reports in CDW, which I'll show later, and encourage people to voucher in 5 days, because I think it is by law that they have to do it. And also, you don't want them to voucher out less than what they put in the TA, and it turns out it's expiring funds, and you lost it. Can't get it back. So you want to make sure they do it in time. So this is just an overview. You know, keep a centralized document control like a binder. Keep it all centralized, all your commitments, the obligations. You know, just one book that anyone could go to in the office and go to. It makes sense, and they could see all the financial transactions, all the history. You know, prepare practical status of funds report. You know, make sure you keep in mind the purpose of the report and the audience. You know, sometimes you don't have to show the whole status of funds, like the commitments, obligations. Maybe your manager just wants the total authority, what's spent, and the available balance. You know, I haven't met too many managers that care about obligations and commitments in great detail. They just want to know how much money they got and how much money they could spend. Is that right for most senior level managers? Yes? Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. The good ones are. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, even though you fund something doesn't mean that, you know, that you're done with it. You know, but you know, they don't really pay attention in that level. You know, certify availability of funds. You know, make sure you have the funds available. Don't go over ceilings. You know, make sure you don't get de factos. You know, commit the funds in Compass or any other feeder system. And, you know, make sure your accounting is correct, IT codes, conference codes, because you're going to have to reconcile it, especially at the end of the year. Or, you know, if there's a budget data call and you have to pull a report, you want to make sure all the information that you entered in Compass is correct so that data makes sense. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people here, you'll pull a report that someone asks you to pull and it just looks funky. And it's because someone didn't put the data inside the accounting correct. Does that happen? No, everyone's perfect? You know, other things is just, you know, spend evenly throughout the year. You know, sometimes that could be a little hard with CRs because you don't get all your money. But, you know, you want to, we're 60% of the year, you know, hopefully you're spending at least 60% of your money is already spent outside the door. You know, anticipate reprogrammings if you think you're going to get, if you need more money in a BOC, if you need more money in a service agreement, need more travel money, you know, make sure you're proactive and talk to your SBO to move some money around. Maybe they have some in a reserve that they pulled back at the beginning of the year. Maybe another office in your organization is not spending all their travel money, and you can ask them, hey, can we borrow some and we'll pay you back next year? Yeah, right? Hopefully they forget. But, you know, just stuff like that. You know, just be proactive. Just look at your status funds. Make sure you have enough money. If you don't, you know, see if you can make some deals with somebody else, move some money around. And like I said, with my travel SOP for swapping funds is, you know, I create SOPs for everything and I just keep it for myself. And you know, I have it all saved up, like all my documentations, how to do what. And, you know, that's pretty much how I got to be here helping out with this course. Is just I documented all my stuff on how to do everything and just started sharing it with people, and people liked it so much that, you know, they asked me here to talk about it, which I will later on when I talk about CDW. I didn't do an SOP about talking about SOPs. But, you know, did one for travel, contracts, working capital funds, you know, supplies, you know, reprogrammings. You know, I just wrote notes, you know, just kept the file on it, you know, and just started adding it to it. And, you know, that's a good way to, you know, be on top of things, because things change, you know, especially for like travel, the conference codes, that's pretty new. You know, God knows what they're going to make us record or document next year. You know, maybe there's going to be more project codes we've got to use. You know, who knows what they'll come up. But, you know, you want to document it, make a good SOP, you know, so you have a good record of it so you can share it with other people if you get a new FCO, or, you know, just to remind yourself in the future. And that's all for that section.
But before we stop, and I want a couple other things I want to mention, if I remember what I was going to mention. One of the things in the closeout document, we sweep old commitments. And one of the things, if I see a commitment in the system, and this is in our actually policy, that's over a year old, then we'll sweep it. Why would we do that? Because they haven't obligated it. And I'm making the assumption that if you've got something in the system that's been sitting there for a year, you've forgotten about it. And you, as an FCO, are really not doing the follow-up we're looking for. So that's kind of why one of the things I should be able to expect to ask any one of you about any commitment. If I call you up and say, what's the status of this commitment, I'd expect you to tell me. Whatever commitment, any commitment, that's what I'm looking for an FCO. That's if you're going beyond to really know what's going on, what's the status of everything. Because if something's been there for, not too long, you want to know why, and you want to make sure you're following up on that.